Hey, good morning. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have anyone to approve the minutes? Do we have a motion from the last?
I'll
meeting?
motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Great. Do we have any visitor comments today?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got to press the button.
Okay. Hello, my name is Betty Bayer and I own Betty's Books here in Webster Groves. Thanks.
Welcome to the commission. Okay, do we have any visitor comments this morning? Hi, Dave.
Dave Buck, I own the village apartments. I may have shared this before, but I've been in your shoes. I started and owned my own small business for 24 years. This is my belief. In any small business, big business, corporation, there's a benefit ladder. And there are two types of benefits. Normally, the first benefits voiced by consumers are the rational benefits, like price, convenience, quality, stuff like that. But as you go up the ladder up, you get to the emotional benefits, which are the more powerful, the deeper, and the more important ultimately. And in that regard, there are four primary emotions in life, as I have learned: happy, sad, mad, and scared. They're all four important, but happiness is by far the most important and dominant emotion. Harvard University conducted, I think, the longest market research study ever conducted on any subject, 85 years. They started it in 1938, they ended it last year, and they reported their findings on the subject of happiness. And they said that the number one contributing factor to happiness in life is good, direct, honest human relationships and friendships and connections, not driven by technology or dependent on technology, but direct human relationships, okay? I think this is the powerful force of the Webster business. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. I admire what you're doing. I support what you're doing. And I think whether it's your business coffees, your daily shoppers, the Fall Fest, your individual district events, but the point is that it's not just your merchandise and your physical products. What people love about this business district are the personal, direct human relationships. When I go into the Boardwalk Cafe, I know everybody and they know me, and it's like the Cheers bar. It's more important than their food, which is great. It's the community, it's the friendships. And I think happiness is what you guys are all about. I think your customers are happy. When I go into your stores, I leave happy. And that's an emotion I think that you all have not fully leveraged yet. So even with Tim, I'm happy when I see Tim. I know, there you go. So anyway, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. You guys are doing great.
Thank you for the kind words, Dave. Okay, so we're on to the old business and the BDC collaboration subcommittee update. So actually, I think we first need to make sure that we agree to establish this subcommittee. When we're trying to pull together the Fall Fest and these kind of quarterly promotional efforts to bring people from around the region to Webster Groves, we found that there could be some good value in creating a subcommittee from the BDC. But I think, is that something that we would need to vote to create? Yeah. So I would like to propose that we create a subcommittee that's a Webster Business Collaboration Committee, so that as we try to come together to organize, discuss, collaborate, things like that. It keeps a close tie with the BDC and the city so that everybody's kind of in the loop and can contribute and communicate. Sir? A second? Would anybody?
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah. Can we just elaborate with a definition of collaboration?
So, for example, for the Fall Fest, we've got a common banner or a poster that we're using. So it's digital assets. You know, we've all decided, we've loosely communicated some of the things that we're doing so that that could have some format. We're all co-hosts of the event on social media so that we can all promote it to our customers. So it's a lot of things like that where we can come together in effort.
I don't know if you're familiar, but we've been meeting with business owners throughout the community, so they don't have to be on this board. So this would open that up to non-members of the BDC board, and just kind of to cast a wider net to get more hands on deck and more input.
So
I'm sorry.
What?
I was gonna ask a quick question. How many members are supposed to be on this board? 9. Where are we? Are we full or? One vacancy. So we have 2 people that aren't here today? Okay. And how many people are you saying we should have on this subcommittee?
The subcommittee is just a wide open. So back when we had a meeting, I guess it was a morning meeting. I can't remember what we called it, but it was where we invited all the business owners, anybody that wanted to come that had a brick and mortar to the meeting that we had in the other conference room. I think it was back in September or August. There was value in having a monthly meeting that came out of that. You know, it's just an opt-in. Whoever wants to show up can show up. If I understand correctly, the subcommittee can be open to the general members, the business members.
I'll give you my last words. Yes, so subcommittee is not restricted to just the members of the body, but if it is an official subcommittee and you sort of decide the structure of how you all want to decide that, just be very clear, subcommittees doesn't make any decisions, doesn't decide your events. All that has to come back up to this body then to be an action of that is designated as so.
So just to clarify also the sunshine rules, because it's not a voting part of the BDC does the voting and decision-making, that they would be.
Subcommittee still needs to be posted and we need to know that it's happening and for the public and such. Depends on how many of you all of the 9 will be a part of that. If there are 5 of the 9 seats attend that meeting, then it is also a quorum of this body. Even though there's not a decision of this body being made, it needs to be posted as such. No different if 4 of the council members are going to go to a conference. There's a posting made so that the public's aware that there's a quorum going to be present, even though there's not a meeting happening. That has happened.
So what would be the vehicle that would be posted with?
We would create simply an agenda that simply says there's a quorum going to be present, no business to be discussed that will be acted on, right? But the public is aware that it is open meeting. Subcommittees can be open and such that that if the public wants to hear these conversations that may formulate a decision, they can. Okay,
So then, since we wouldn't necessarily have attendance or like feedback coming before the meetings, we would have to post all of the subcommittee meetings. Is that correct?
That's correct. If it is a subcommittee. So this group has sort of worked for 2-3 meetings maybe now. As just sort of an ad hoc group of the community that has happened to be meeting here, or, city staff have attended to sort of hear your feedback and such. But it has been a meeting of a body of the city like a subcommittee would be.
Okay.
Is there any limit to how many members can be on a subcommittee?
That's up to you to decide. Subcommittee theoretically could be larger than your actual commission, but in general, subcommittees are usually viewed as smaller, but that doesn't have to be the case. So.
Any other questions, Tim?
Clarification.
Yeah.
At the moment, though, it is business owners in Webster Groves, brick
Correct.
and mortar,
Brick and mortar restaurants and shops.
restaurants and retail.
Mhm.
Just wanted to make sure I understood.
Do we know how many are on the committee today?
You mean how many people just showed up at the last
Yeah.
meeting? Maybe 10, yeah.
I think just to clarify for Jerry's answer there, there's a difference between how many have been invited. That list is larger than, of course, those that have appeared. So if you want to, this body could define numbers and then you have to work on who's going to be on it and such. So.
So is that, before we take a vote, is that something that we would need to define, Eric, is like how it would work?
I think your motion is set up, to say we continuing that same process. We just want to name that group that meets as a subcommittee. You could say that it's going to be up to 15 members, but you could also say it's just open and who shows up is who shows up. I think what Fran and Renee will need to know for the future is if you folks are going to show up, but there are more than 4 or 5 of you, then we need to, or 5 or more, then we need to make sure to be able to post that for quorum notice.
Okay.
Just for benefit of everyone's knowledge, can we maybe discuss the benefits of having a subcommittee versus just having business owners who meet? Like, what are the pros and cons? Like, is there a problem with us just meeting with business owners informally?
I'm going to look at Ms. Tyler. From my perspective, there's no problem whatsoever having those kind of meetings. I would expect that you all have meetings with
On
your
our own.
colleagues and people important to you in the community quite often. So no, there's no problem with it. It's just a matter of that group, is really, if they're giving the BDC some information to act on, the BDC needs to act or the city needs to decide to act. They can't compel the city as a group, and no different than a group of folks having coffee can't say the city needs to go fix this stop sign, right? It has to go through a process here. So.
But potential benefit of it being a subcommittee would be we could use Fran a little more, or instead of her having to volunteer if she wanted to, or no.
So that would actually be a case by case basis.
Okay.
I would encourage you to talk to other business owners. You are representing the businesses. So there are a lot of things that are discussed here that are positive, that information should be spread, because everybody doesn't know what's happening. As far as Fran is concerned, Fran is contracted via the city. So we would need to talk about that before making the request for her services.
Two more quick points. And it just seems, again, I'm a little bit just coming into this, that it probably would make sense for us to consider a chair for this subcommittee, which one of us would do, just to be able to provide leadership. And secondly, it sounds like this is an outreach to our community to be able to understand what their needs are and help prioritize those, as listed, and then help guide the conversation and the process. That would be my recommendation.
What if we did this as a trial? We did it for 3 months, see how it goes, and then decide if it's worth it or if it's just wasting time.
That's fine. I think that's kind of most subcommittees, right? Is we do it for a little bit. And,
Well, I was just tossing out that would be it's not a permanent thing that we're putting on, because if we're talking Fran's time and everything else, it is getting money involved and things involved that we take a set time and then we reevaluate, say, is this helping us do our jobs better? And if it is, great, we move on.
do we Do we have any kind of funding that could support that as far as Fran attending those meetings for a few months and then coming back around to reevaluate?
No, no, there is no funding to support that. In fact, for the subcommittee meetings, whatever you all are doing, someone would need to be appointed as the scribe to take the notes. Those notes, they're notes, they're not minutes, but they would need to be reported back to this body. So Fran is not necessary for you to have your subcommittee meetings. The only thing that we need is the notes that needs to be shared with the whole body. And it would be included in the minutes or probably a handout so that all of your commissioners would know what was going on with your subcommittee meeting.
Okay. And would that need to be somewhat detailed or is it just in general?
For the subcommittee, it's however you take your notes. It might be, we met, we met with people, we talked about what we're doing, we got some information about initiatives that the BDC is looking at implementing, and this is the feedback. Something as simple as that.
I think the one thing I would add is for making a recommendation to this body to do X, Y, Z, that then detail that out so the body knows what the recommendation is. So, a nebulous one sentence statement can easily be, if you put a little more flesh to that bone, it's easier for you all to understand what is the subcommittee asking for. So.
At the first one, which I did not attend, did you have an agenda and everything much like this, or did you just get together and talk?
I would say that most of them, we brought people together, introduced the idea that we had come up with Councilperson Hassemeyer of having quarterly promotions that we kind of rally around, that we can promote to the region to bring people here. Mostly it's expanding the idea of is it Winter Wonderland or Webster Wonderland? Webster Wonderland. So that was the seed for the idea. And then to try and pull that out into quarterly group initiatives amongst the business owners. And so that's where the meeting started. And then people started throwing in ideas. Fall Fest was something that had been done before. And so we decided to just use that and grow it and invite everybody to participate. And so that's where we are now. And then we haven't gone really any further on that on future ones because Webster Wonderland already exists. So now the conversation is turning towards that and how we can all collaborate.
Okay, so it's just a seed, not an agenda that needs to be written for the subcommittee that shows up.
I don't think there would be an agenda.
Okay.
It's just kind of, at this point, natural conversation.
It seemed like kind of a brainstorming session of sorts, and then just ideas popped out.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Brainstorming, volunteering. Yeah.
What do you think is the benefit of it being a subcommittee versus just an informal group? Because it seems like the red tape, for better words, lack of better words, seems like a negative almost.
Sure. So if I were to say where all of these conversations could lead to. So we've been talking about having and promoting Webster-wide for years. What that structure would look like, where the funding would come from and everything else are things that we're all investigating and learning on the commission. But having a subcommittee where it's reporting back to the city, where there's minutes, where they can see what the needs are of the business community and in a larger scale than maybe the coffees and the happy hours and things like that. And on a regular basis, we'll give them more input into what the best vehicle going forward would be. And I think I agree with you. It's a lot of red tape and it's kind of makes it harder a little bit at first, but I think that it's towards a larger goal. And if we, like Eric was saying, if we have it as a subcommittee, then it's reporting back to the Business Development Commission in a more official way than if it's just a group of people having coffee. So that subcommittee could ask questions or maybe ask for assistance from the BDC and the city. So if a group of business owners got together and had some requests, whether it was like towards marketing or whatever, that would need to come to, would that need to come to the BDC, whether there's a subcommittee or not?
If there's not a subcommittee and if that group was just together, if you five met, had coffee and had a list of things for the city, it would come as many citizen comments do, and it would be routed to the appropriate department for some response. In this case, DCM Tyler likely, along with city manager. I think the difference is that there's not necessarily a council member involved in that process. These commissions are advising the council on policy. I think that's what you're talking about in some regards, if you're going to have a formalized subcommittee. Now, that said, citizen comments are not necessarily withheld from the council either. It depends on the level of them. If it's stop signs out or we want to talk about a traffic issue, that's much more a staff and operational issue. If it's the paving program doesn't work, that those kinds of things rise to the council. So whatever the issue may be, it depends on the nature of the matter listed.
Another thought?
Of course.
I really like this idea of maybe putting a big toe in the water, right? And testing it, because just role playing a little bit, right? We're opening ourselves up to a floodgate, right? When you invite business owners, entrepreneurs to come into an environment and you're inviting them, right? What are your needs? What are your challenges? What can we do from a marketing perspective, whatever it might be? We're going to have a floodgate of, we'll call it opportunities and challenges, then to prioritize. And if we do it on a scheduled basis, it is only going to multiply and multiply. So I do like the idea of, hey, you know what, let's do it as one meeting and get as much feedback as we can so that we can organize that feedback, prioritize it, and then we can act on it, because I mean, it all comes down to execution, right? As opposed to just a forum.
Sure. So in that regard, I would say there probably is a little more of an agenda than just an open, like, what are your challenges? Because it is focused on these quarterly promotional efforts and collaborating in that way. So I would say that, yes, there probably is a little more of an agenda than just an open forum of tell us your gripes or your challenges or your hopes and like where the future is. Any other comments? Betty, do you have any thoughts? Because you've attended some of them.
Yeah, I think it was a good clarification that it isn't an open forum for gripes. It's specific people really looking for these like quarterly marketing efforts. And as it stands, it's hard to organize because there's not a central neutral group to bring everyone together. And so that's the challenge. And our last meeting, we were really trying to figure out what that central organizing point could be. And so this just feels like an opportunity to try to start the process to make something that's more formal, but not too formal. So, yeah, I think it could be really good.
So do we have any other questions before we kind of clarify what that might be and put it to vote? Okay, so it sounds like what we're suggesting is a trial of 3 months of the subcommittee as a collaborative, a business collaborative, where we would take notes, report back to the city, and see if there is value in continuing forward with that as a BDC subcommittee, and maybe what kind of information we get out of it as we move forward.
That sounds good. I might also say we start this after the first of the year, just because holidays are busy, and if we want to give it a real try to get people out there, I would hate for the first 2 times not have a good turnout, and then we say this is a bad idea because it's the holidays.
We've already do it, and we have another one set up, a date set up.
How many have you had?
3. So, I mean, we can certainly push it off to January to make it a BDC subcommittee, but the group will still keep meeting.
Okay.
Does anyone have any feelings either way, one or the other, whether we start it now or in January? Since we already have Webster Wonderland, and that's what the group is starting to talk about, I would suggest that we go ahead and start it now so that we can begin collecting notes and data for this commission right away. And then we can also report people's experiences are with Fall Fest, which is this weekend. So I will go back to proposing the creation of the subcommittee, which is we want to create a subcommittee of the BDC that is a business collaborative, meeting once a month. The dates will be posted, notes will be taken, and do we have a chair? Anyone that would like to chair that committee, that subcommittee?
I'd be happy to chair this one.
And do we want to go ahead and take it to vote then? All right, those in favor? Any opposed? Are we watching for online? Is anybody watching via Zoom? Okay. All right, great. Then it carries. We'll start the subcommittee. Do we have a name for it? Do we want to call it just the Business Collaborative? Good. All right. The next meeting is scheduled for November 4th at 9 a.m. at Blue Dahlia. Yeah, Julia's the chair. Yeah. Sure. 9 a.m. Okay, great. Now we have a subcommittee. The Fall Fest event, would you like to report on that from the subcommittee?
Sure. Fall Fest event, we are very excited. We have participation from businesses all over the city, every district, every piece of non-district, it seems. And yes, lots of outliers who were energized, and I was gathering all of the contributions to the swag bags we're giving out, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. Like, it was a physical, tangible evidence of everybody from the city represented. And so that is this weekend coming up. It is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can check out the Facebook event for more details, but also just get out and explore Webster Groves and see what all these businesses are up to. It's very much show up in the way that suits your business best. So we're seeing things from, food or drink specials that are fall themed, to some people have craft activities, even just new season collections, etc. So we are excited, and there's been great participation.
I have a question. Are you guys following up on the folks that haven't paid yet?
Emails have been sent. I don't know what our process would be about people who just don't, except for to maybe keep an eye on that for next time.
So yeah, we will need to figure out if there's things like that where people have to register and pay money in advance, how that's organized, what the channels are to go through to make it more simple. things like that. But I know that some people that did not pay through the portal have paid Madeline personally when they pick up their poster.
Which I think we need to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. Like if we're gonna have a pay spot, that's needs to be where people pay, or just, I mean, this time we had people pay so we could supplement the printing of those posters, but if we didn't have that, then it would just be the time of somebody like me or a subcommittee member to make a digital flyer. It'd be volunteer basis, so that might be a avenue to consider.
One of the neat things about the poster, though, is that it's also including our arts community. And the ability to going forward with some of these quarterly promotions and engage, you know, like the theater at the university or, you know, artists in the community to create these posters. They're high quality, they're printer, you know, done on a printing press, they're collectible. You know, it really is a neat way to engage a broader segment of our community. So,
And we were discussing making the poster, like Tammy's saying, kind of like a series, like it would switch over to who's the next artist. It would just be an opportunity to feature different creatives.
okay. So on the next item on the agenda is how we would request any type of funding or support from the council. If these are going to be Webster-wide type, these quarterly promotions are going to be Webster-wide, is there a way to ask for support from the council for some of the advertising or some of the costs involved?
So you can ask for council funding. You also can, if this is Webster-wide and it's initiatives that include all of the 3 districts, you all can also pool together because you have funding. But if you're asking for external additional funding, that would be a council request.
Okay, so I was hearing 2 different things in there because the districts are incredibly separate and there's laws regarding how those funds are spent. But Webster-wide is including areas that are not in those districts, which is why we're creating the subcommittee.
Then that would be a council request.
That's like Webster Wonderland though. So Webster Wonderland includes district funding and general funding.
Oh, okay, so it does have, so it has 4 sources of funding then. Okay.
So theoretically, we could do both. We could go to our districts and ask for a kick-in, and we could go to council and ask for like the 4th quarter of a kick-in. Okay, and then is there a way to make that happen before we do our next year's budget request? Because I know we have some time before that, or should we just work on planning for next year and make it work between now and then?
So there is a board and commission funding request form. I believe you all shown that in your training. There's nothing stopping you from making a request. So that is a council decision. I do suggest that for FY26, which we are going to be in the budget process starting January, that you all plan and build that into your budget request for the following year. And that way you don't have to, yeah.
So I do have one more question, which is related to kind of the timing. So the council's agendas and you know, what's going to be on at a meeting is set far in advance. So if we were to have interest in requesting funds prior to the 2026 fiscal year budget, what's the timeline that you would recommend?
The second council meeting in November. Because the first council meeting in November is the 5th. and then there's another one. So you have time to get your request on that agenda. Otherwise, it would be going into December, and do we only have one council meeting? We have both, and, okay. So December would be your other option, but your next council meeting is, I think it's November 5th.
Yeah, and I would just add that, well, that is a timeline you can meet. That depends on, there's a process that the staff have to provide input to the council as well at the council's request. So it's really not a staff decision though. When it goes to the council, this is a conversation with Councilmember Hasselmeyer to have about how important it is to have this on the agenda, at what time, and communicate with the mayor in setting that agenda.
So this isn't on the same time frame as when we turn in our budgets February, and that it's not
So this form does
totally
not,
different.
is not about the budget. This form is in the middle of the year. You had another request, another idea. This is how you make that request. The budget will be done in January, February, March with you, and that request goes into the city manager.
But so it should be in before any of
If
that
you
stuff.
want funding before the budget, that would start in July of next year.
Right,
You need
right.
to make a request.
With that, it would generally take like, it's not like we submit a form and we get a check. It's like it takes 2 to 4 weeks and there's a process and
Correct.
great. Okay, perfect.
All right, so do we have any more questions regarding the subcommittee, any potential funding requests in the future? Or anything like that before we move on to the next thing?
I would just, do we need to talk about what we start ballparking, some sort of an idea of what kind of money we might want and what it's for? Since this will be the next meeting that we'll need to basically get this form in on, I think a small conversation about, at least for us to start thinking about where we are so that we can decide what we want to ask for, in the next meeting.
I would think that would probably be a subcommittee, like something we'd throw out to them. What do you think because what's set already for Webster Wonderland, correct? The budget, the advertising budget, or what's going out with radio and television and things like that. So the immediate need isn't there. It would be for like spring or summer of next year. And so,
Yeah, I think we are good for now. Like Tammy said, I think we're not going to ask for any additional funding for the winter holiday season.
Right.
So I think, yeah, maybe in January, we can talk about putting in an additional, like kind of like midway request to buy us that time until we have our budget set for next year.
Well, by next meeting, we'll be able to see how successful Fall Fest was, and then what the cost was for that, right? So we can kind of use that to gauge.
yeah. And by January, we would definitely also understand Webster Wonderland, how those funds were spent, where we all felt like we got the most traction on the dollar spend for promoting and things like that. So I think January sounds like a pretty good time to.
And Eric, this is something we could refill this out numerous times a year.
Many times as you want.
Can I ask what has been our 2024 budget for?
EDC's budget?
Yes, sir.
$4,000. You have 3,000 essentially in for events and advertise. Well, 4,000 overall, really about 1,000 for the 2 coffees, food and some of that promotion. Then 3,000 was added for events, and then also what materials and resources would you might need if you were to propose a SID at that time was the conversation, or those other larger policy things that you needed some of that outreach. So
Do we know where we're at on our spend right now? Like what we have left in our bucket?
top of my head, you're at about 1,600 spent overall.
coming out.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, so moving on to the next Item on the agenda is the Business Coffee Happy Hour Subcommittee. Do you have anything to report, Mike?
Yep. Eric and I were talking about when to do our next happy hour. Figure that's the next event. Initially, we thought December would be nice, but we know it's so busy with retail and restaurants in December. We kind of wanted to throw it out there and see what you all thought. If you thought we should wait until January, and then we could start planning and firm up a date.
December is a really crowded time.
Yep.
My fear is there's so much going on that, I think we're going to have a better success. We'll have better success in January than in December.
I agree. That's what I was thinking too. So,
And I'll throw this out because, we had a blast. I mean, the last happy hour, I got to tell you, I mean, we're still reeling from the success of it. So if you're open to collaborating again, count us in.
yeah, I think that'd be great. So the other thing that we discussed was regarding the business coffee. And I know initially we were planning on 2 business coffees because this was before the happy hours. Do we want to keep doing the 2 coffees or do we think 1 coffee is good? Since we're doing the happy hours now.
I personally think that the happy hour is more like socializing and that the coffee is where we're giving concrete information, getting specific feedback, and having the ability to have deeper conversations with individuals. I think doing it twice a year, especially if we're looking at, like some sort of collaborative funding or things like that, is probably still going to have its value.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you're also opening it up to a different audience. There's more morning people sometimes. We do one every single month and we average about 35 to 40 people. Mhm.
Okay.
I agree. I think, I mean, we're trying to get it rolling and continue on. If it's once a year, I think you start to maybe lose it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep people's mind.
Sounds good.
I know we have also talked about it, just kind of being like these types of things being quarterly. So it'd be like 1 quarter coffee, 1 quarter happy hour, switch it out.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's a conflict there with because our next coffee is February, correct?
Yeah, February is the next coffee. So should we spread it out a little bit more?
Or should we push the coffee? And like, I'm into happy hour in January.
I think the happy hour in January is a good time
Makes sense.
because it's after the holidays, it's not as busy. So maybe we do that. Maybe we push the coffee a couple more months, push that into like April. Yeah, that's fine. I think that makes sense.
I agree with January for the happy hour. I think it would be a great time for folks to come together, kind of like check in. How did the holiday season go? How, to have an informal and relaxed atmosphere for people to share their experiences and thoughts on some of the things that we did for the past year.
Okay.
I mean, I'll just toss in, I think a February coffee, again, I think I like having more consistency.
We could try it because that's also the heavy planning time of year, where it's before our budget request is due. It is when people are planning out, a lot of like retail has to start buying for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
They have to start planning for the rest of the year.
Well, that's a good point with the budget. If we push that coffee to April, we've missed our budget request time.
Why don't we try it?
January happy hour, February coffee. Yep.
Can you clarify that? I heard 2 things are happening in January. Is that right?
January happy hour, February coffee.
Okay.
So usually for the coffees, we try to identify information that we want to be able to share so that we have enough time to gather it and things like that. Does the subcommittee have any recommendations at this point?
Not at this time, but we'll get it together by next meeting.
Do we dare kind of throw out dates?
Let's do it.
If we're collaborating, what do you think works with the chamber?
Love to do it in January. We typically, and again, everything is flexible. We typically do it the last Thursday of the month. If that works, but
That would be January 30th.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, do we want to go ahead and set the coffee while we're at it? Got our calendars out?
We had that.
Because we didn't want it by Valentine's Day. Yeah.
I don't know if it's on this calendar.
12. Yeah, it does.
You know, now that we're talking about it too, having the happy hour, like not far from the coffee gives us the opportunity to remind people to come to it.
The last one, they were kind
Yeah.
of clustered together too.
Yeah, they were. Should we keep it February 12th?
Like the 26th.
The last Wednesday. It sounds like a good amount of time for us to, would we have had our meeting?
Yeah, that would be after our meeting then, right?
Yeah, so any kind of additional last minute information that we would need to clarify or add to the coffee based on conversations at the happy hour, it would give us time to do that.
So February 26th, commit to that.
Great.
Okay.
Set. Okay. Blue Dot QR code update. Do we have any kind of
I guess this
updates
is
on
my
that?
last words. So the training videos for businesses are all done. And so just working with Tiara on when in this next week, before I leave, the announcement will go out. And so all businesses will be invited to edit. They've already started organically doing it, and it's been fun to watch as businesses realize. And just as you all, I think we talked about when Blue Dot came online, there's not an account. I'll use Descendant as an example. Theoretically, I could submit a submission for Descendant. It's been open for a month and no one has fiddled with anyone's business or sent anything in. So it's just been a real reassuring thing that people can submit edits, and we haven't had people playing with that function and such. Now, of course, none of those edits go live without city proctoring them and looking at those, but had conversations with Fran and with Renee and our staff here, really working forward on the training schedule and what to look for to make sure that it is Julia, that's making a edit to her business, or Tim or Mike and such, so that it is there. We've added the parking lots to the map, so parking will be visualized for folks when they're coming in. That city-owned parking lots, I want to be very clear, city-owned parking lots or city leased lots. And then the licensure piece is built out and ready to go. So they'll be building some training videos for you all on how licensure will work on that as well. And then while we're on quick updates for Blue Dot, the parking permit renewals are coming out this week. The letters will be going out in the mail. So for those that have orange, blue, or yellow permits, those businesses will be getting their renewal letters. And then if there are non-renewals and extras, we'll be announcing those via social media and messages out to the community in that regard. So for those that want to buy extra. And I see the council members coming up, and that always scares me. So.
Hi, and forgive this question because you all may have talked about this before. I am curious about Blue Dot and its rollout. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be such a great tool for our community. What does it look like to communicate to the public about the asset that this is?
That's a great question. So I think there'll be, we obviously have, every business will be offered one of the signs in there for their shop, the metal signs that are being printed, if they wish to have one with the QR code. And then there'll be public communications. Tiara, we've had conversations about needing to have sort of an ongoing reminder that this is available, and that really drive to the Explorer Webster Groves brand to grab that directory there. So we have, I don't have the analytics in front of me, but we have seen a small uptick. Say it's not huge. I mean, people still are not flocking to the city website to find a business directory. That's not just a learned thing, I think, for a lot of folks yet, but there has been an uptick since we've gone to the map version versus the old, what we call the static directory, just the listing of businesses. We do see the page getting more hits. I didn't pull the analytics before I got here. So.
No, that's great. Thanks. And is it helpful if ever, like once Blue Dot is like really up and running, to explain to council. Just because I feel like, then we can go out and advocate, for its existence and explain the asset to all the peeps. All right, cool. Thanks.
I'd like to add on that. I mean, Eric, you've spearheaded this whole thing and been in charge of this. I remember years ago, Mara had a similar type thing that she was working on, that just kind of died. Who is going to be spearheading this? Renee, are you going to be in charge of this? Just to make sure that it doesn't just die?
So yeah, and you will be working with Fran as well.
What's that? I'm sorry.
You asked who would be in charge,
Yeah.
and I said yes. And you're going to also be working with Fran as well. She's going to be working with me on this.
I'm not worried about my end of it. I'm just that it does continue to get moved forward. And the question that Councilwoman asked about, how are we moving it forward to get it to the public and have everybody understand? Is there somebody, are you going to be the one that's in charge of getting that, you and Tiara or whoever?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Ooh, that's loud. Yes, I will be having the oversight, and I was saying that you will also be working with Fran as well. So as we roll this out, as we do initiatives to make certain that the business community is aware of, the Blue Dot and all the things that it offers. So I'm
Okay.
sorry if I'm not answering you clearly, but yes.
No, that answers. That answers.
Okay.
Fran has been kind enough to add some time.
Okay, any other comments or questions on that? Okay, the next item is the BDC vision plan update. I would say that we don't necessarily have any new information to add to that, except, as we want to come up with it, I think, in a document, kind of to have moving forward so that people understand, or whether it's new members coming onto the commission or the general public or the council understands kind of the structure of what we're working towards. But I think that we saw a lot of it in motion today, which was, communicating about quarterly promotions Webster-wide, creating that subcommittee, the coffees and the happy hours. And so we saw it in motion, but we just don't have it on paper yet. Do we have any comments from people that are working on it? Okay. New business, 2025 meeting schedule. Do we have any?
Okay, so on the screen is the proposed schedule for 2025, and the Business Development Commission is the first column. Basically, the proposed change is for our meetings to start on the second Tuesday of the month. Oh, I'm sorry, first Tuesday after the first Thursday after the first Tuesday. That's a mouthful. So as you can see, our first meeting in January will be the 9th. And then just subsequently going down. So this is what we're proposing.
And if I may add, because it's a change, Renee and I talked about this. This came from me. When we look at it, the old Webster meeting was is potentially on a natural month on the same week as your BDC meeting. And how do we, for staff level, get to one meeting a week and try to lay that out in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4? And this allowed that to happen. And so really, instead of the BDC coming at the end of the month to catch all these reports, BDC's coming at the beginning of the month. Then, so I think we're still reporting. It's coming at the beginning of the month, working through on week 1, and then the 3 districts follow in the 1 week after that.
As long as Fran still sends emails out.
Well, I was going to say, I think it looks fine, but can you email this out so I can put it on my calendar? Because it's not as easy as just saying third Thursday or whatever it is that is my recurring reminder.
Is it possible to send it out in like a invite format, like a Google Calendar invite, so that we can all just click yes, 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 and it goes straight to our calendars?
That's easy. That's an easy fix. We can
That'd
do
be
that.
great. Yeah.
July 3rd is on this. This one thing I didn't highlight for you all. Do you want to meet the day before July 4th? So those are the kinds of things I would look at now.
Oh,
You know,
why don't we just not do a July meeting if that's when it's going to be?
Well, but that's when we do a lot of the planning for the end of the year. And that's also, isn't that when the budget gets released, then we switch to the new
the new fiscal.
fiscal year? Can we just do it the week later? Or does anybody have problems with the 3rd?
I don't.
Yeah.
Is there no meeting in December?
We generally don't.
Mhm.
Does anybody have troubles with the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all Webster holiday stuff for the 4th of July. I don't know what the schedule looks like for that yet, but
I'm fine with the 3rd. I guess we can also look at changing it later if we come up to challenges. Yeah, okay.
So we'll send out calendar invites and get this on your all's calendar. And that way, you know, beforehand, and Fran will continue to send out her reminders as well.
Okay, do we have any business district updates this morning?
Crossroads we did not meet this month. We didn't have a quorum. But other than that, business as usual on the street and all going well. There have been signs of like surveyors and people taking pictures for the streetscape project, which is nice to see that moving along.
Anything from Old Webster?
Fran, can you help me out on taxation on Tuesday? Yes, with the open house in November, we just came off of Walktoberfest, which was an absolutely gorgeous day. Holiday open house is the 17th. Thank you, Eric. And then we are scattering our some small events each week in December. Included our girls' night out that we do 4 times a year. But yeah, as far as Old Webster, that's where things are.
Great. Do we have any updates on Old Orchard?
Old Orchard is planning their holiday festival on the 7th of December. And they're adding an outdoor movie this year. That is the tree lighting. No.
Can I share?
Absolutely.
We are knee deep in Santa's on the Loose, which is coming up, right? That's a fun, and I got to tell you, I had a chance to do the run, volunteer at the run last Saturday at the junior high, I believe. That was just so much fun. So I'm hoping everybody will participate and look forward to the Santa's on the Loose. And that's December the 7th is a Saturday. And one other note, if I can, before, and I just want to thank Eric Peterson for all of his efforts. Sadly, you know, the clock is ticking, right? November 1st, and we'll be here sadly before we know it. And as a new member of this community, you have opened your arms and given not only the Chamber of Commerce a hug, you have given me personally inspiration and fuel to do my job, to serve our community. And I just want to thank you very, very much, certainly on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much.
I'd actually like to echo that. We've learned so much. Thank you. Jamie, do you have a council member update?
Jerry, you stole my thunder. I wanted to make Eric uncomfortable first. But yes, I mean, it goes without saying, Eric is really incredible and so patient, so knowledgeable, and just such an asset to our community. And we've been very lucky to have him a part of this group and a part of our Webster family for the last few years. And it won't be the same without you, but I trust that we'll recover. I don't know about that. No, I trust we will recover, but thank you so much for all that you've done. Yeah, just a couple of quick updates. The last couple of council meetings, we've had an IT discussion, which is like so critically important. And as we, it's 2024 and we are still cobbling together what it looks like to have this operation step into a stronger IT position. Council is working on assessing our priorities as it pertains to the strategic plan. So that has been kind of an fun and if you're into that sort of thing, I am, a fun experience to work through those priorities. Obviously, our business districts, our business community is critically important to those priorities. So you are definitely in mind as we move forward on that. And I'll just take that a second to say thank you very much for all that you do and for being on this, giving your time to your communities, creative thinking, pulling everybody together. Walktoberfest looked like it was a blast, and the Fall Fest this weekend. I'm really just so impressed with the efforts that Webster continues to show up for traditionally and then have it evolve. So thanks to all of you. In our last meeting, we had a discussion about climate resiliency and what does it mean, especially in light of what we just witnessed in the southeast of our country with 2 massive hurricanes back to back. Yeah, what does that mean for Webster to respond to some type of climate emergency? So that's an important conversation. And then we are also presented from Sean Finnegan, our sustainability coordinator. We have partnered with SIUE, and one of their grad students' thesis project was assessing our greenhouse gas emissions, both as a community and city facilities. And with that data, I'm really excited to kind of start to pull on that thread to see where we can be becoming more energy efficient. This is as important as strategic planning, and budget planning is planning for our future as it pertains to sustainability and climate change. So that's all I have. Thanks all for your time.
All right. Any
Madam
other?
Yeah, I see Lieutenant Spear is here. Do you have an update, sir? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we adjourn today? Okay, our next meeting is set for November 21st. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor? None opposed? Great. All right, see you next time.